Welcome, everyone, to Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs fan. Joining me, as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vive. Squid, what's that old line about cream rising to the top? Well, Tampa sure rose to the occasion when it counted and snuffed out any Montreal hope of extending the series. Over, fait accompli.
Well, they certainly did. And, it wasn't easy. I mean, it was a close game, but when you have Vasilevsky back there in goal, you might only need one on most nights, especially. I think, what did he have, like 5 shutouts in closeout games?
I can't remember, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Well,
Crazy.
I mean, it's pretty tough to beat a team as put together as Tampa. I mean, as we've stated many times when you and I have talked on these shows, they can beat you any way you like. The scoring or the power play sputters, they get one, and then Vasilevsky does the rest, as you just mentioned.
Yeah. Well, they get a lot of contributions from their third and fourth lines, too. In fact, their fourth line scored that goal in the final game, and the third line was unbelievable with Gord, Coleman, and Goudreau. I mean, they were fantastic. They were probably as effective and as important as the first and second line, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear that skill won't beat physicality, and physicality alone won't beat skill. You need a combination of both, and that being equal, if you advance, your top 6 are playing well. Their emphasis then falls to your third and fourth lines, and you just mentioned Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman. We're going to see how valued their contributions were by what they get in this open market as free agents, and I suspect they're both in for big raises.
Well, you would think so, but again, as we've discussed many times, is with the flat cap and everything, are they going to get big raises? They might get minimal raises, maybe a little bit more turn, something like that. But it depends. It depends on where they're going to end up. And, you got to look around the league and how many teams have room to sign these guys if they're going to pay them $3 or $4 million. There's not that many. Seattle maybe, and teams like that, but
the Rangers have room. I think Ottawa has room. There's a lot of teams that have room, but I mean, are they the final? These are the type of guys you get to take the final piece to move you to advance you to another level. Like, they would look great in the Toronto lineup, but unfortunately, they're the forbidden fruit, so to speak. So, going back one step further, what was your overall view on the level of play throughout the whole postseason?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I thought, first and foremost, I think it was really competitive. Like, nobody ran away with a whole lot of games. Like, there was a few games here and there where it was like 5-1 or whatever. But overall, I thought the whole playoffs were pretty competitive and pretty balanced. I mean, nobody really ran away with a whole lot of games. So, I mean, that bodes well for the whole league, I think, going forward, is the fact that the parity in the league is as good as it's ever been right now.
Well, and where I'm kind of going with this also is we want to talk about Toronto, obviously, in a second. But as you can see, how things tighten up in the playoffs, the physicality becomes a bigger part of the game. Goaltending becomes a bigger part of the game. So, in your opinion, at this stage, as we sit, does Toronto further from advancing than they were at the beginning of this year, or do you think they're closer, same, or what? Or, I mean, I'm not even referring to winning. I'm referring just advancing.
I would say off the top, further from advancing, based on what has transpired so far, and the fact that they're probably going to lose Hyman, they're probably going to lose a few other guys. You don't advance without a combination, as you said, of physicality, skill, speed, but you also need character. And, I think that's one of the things Tampa had. You look at Killorn and guys like that, a big part of them winning championships, they're just character guys. They'll go down, block shots to prevent a goal. And that's what you need if you're going to win in the playoffs. And right now, Toronto doesn't have a ton of forwards like that. And, they're going to have to really shore up their bottom 6 with guys that play with that type of character if they're going to advance, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I'd suggest they're further from advancing than they were at the start of this year. And why I say that, from what I'm looking at, is at the start of the season, they were confident they had the right voice behind the bench. We see today they've hired Gene Chenoweth, which we'll get to in a second, as an assistant to come along with them. They were confident that the top six was ready to compete. We see that that wasn't the case. We see that they had the right voice, as I said, behind the bench. Doesn't appear that that was the case. That they had enough depth to provide enough for the bottom six to be contributing on a bigger scale. Somewhat, they did a little bit, not very much. It wasn't like we saw with Tampa and some of the other teams, and we thought they had the right goaltending with Freddie, led by Freddie Anderson. We saw that didn't work. So we know the top six now isn't right. They may lose, as you mentioned. Zach Hyman is a key piece. The bottom six, as we mentioned, had its moments, but if you compare it to, as we just said, to the Tampa units, they're way behind those guys because they were every bit as instrumental as Kirchhoff and Point winning that Stanley Cup as anybody else. Vasilevsky versus Jack Campbell, a D led by Victor Hedman. I mean, I know they're the champions, but if you want to attain yourself to that level, you got to be in somewhere. You got to be in the ballpark somewhere with these guys, and John Cooper behind the bench, as we talk about. So now the reality's setting in. Where do we go?
I mean, if you want to compare, like, just start with Tampa's defense. Mm-hmm. And if you look at their defense, I mean, like, their top six defensemen are outstanding, all of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're all big, they're all physical, they all move the puck well, they all skate well, and they're smart. They're very, very intelligent. And then you got Vasilevsky if anything does break down. And again, their bottom six were really, really good. They're really, physical, getting in on the forecheck, blocking shots, you name it. They did it. And, that Toronto, that's one of the things they're missing is that depth on defense and the bottom six. And of course, a guy like Vasilevsky.
Well, I mean, for my list, I would have said right off the bat to get a strong second voice in the bench. Number one, well, maybe they did that today with Gene Chenoweth, who a little bit. You played against him, I believe, near the end of your career. What do you know about him? Yeah. He's a big guy. Looks like he has the pedigree to step up, but will he be the voice?
Well, he played that way. I know he was a big defenseman. Loved to play physical and. He's one of those guys that played that way. Now, is he going to get his defense to play that way? Because I'm assuming he's going to run the defense if they hired him, and he was a defenseman. But, who knows? I mean, I don't know him as a coach because I never coached against him. I've never, played any teams that he has coached, so I don't know how he coaches or what he does on the bench. That all remains to be seen. But, I mean, if you don't have the horses, it doesn't matter who's behind the bench or who's got the whip and the reins in their hand, because if you don't have the horses, it doesn't matter who's riding the horse. It really doesn't.
Well, they seem to squeeze a lot out of Carolina, which has a decent team. But again, they're not loaded like some of these, like Toronto with some of the upfront talent, but they got the most out of their players. So maybe this is the little push they need. But the other thing they have to do is they got to free up some space. Maybe it's Kerfoot. Maybe this Dermott signing is just a move to set him off to Seattle and free up some more space. Somehow they may have to try and retain Hyman. And they got to fill in the bottom six pieces. Then we come back to what we've talked about in the past. We're sounding repetition here, folks, but this is what the issue is until we find out in a couple of weeks what's going on. You got to be praying and hoping that somebody within the organization steps up to fill a hole, i.e. Nick Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what they got to kind of hope for is 2 or 3 guys that are top prospects that do come into camp and they're ready, they're in great shape, and they make the team, and then they get off to a great start. And then maybe all of a sudden things will fall into place and, the lines will get a little closer together and from the fourth to the first, and there'll be a better all-around team. But you got to hope for that because there isn't a whole lot of room to sign any free agents that are going to come in and be a big impact for $700,000 or $800,000. It's just not going to happen.
Well, of course, all this conjecture is all predicated on the Leafs doing nothing on the trade front with the high end players. But as we can clearly see, they can work unless they can work out some cap gymnastics with a team or Seattle or somebody along those lines. The options are going to be very limited, and a trade seems unlikely unless they can have a team retain salary. But at what cost? I mean, Columbus wants to move a couple goalies as an example, or one of the goalies, but they can't afford them as it stands right now. And what are they going to give back to have them retain some money to reduce the cap space? So it's a very tricky situation. I'm sure they're working around the clock, and those minds are a lot smarter than you and I, Squid. So I'm putting some faith in them, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't know. We're not that stupid, Mike.
Well, I don't know.
We got it all. We got it all figured out, but we're not under the gun to make those moves. So it's a lot easier to sit here for us and to discuss these types of things, because we're not the ones that are making those decisions at the end of the day. But, you know, I mean, there's a lot of stick handling that Dubas and those guys are going to have to do to get through the expansion draft, the regular draft, and then free agency. And I got to tell you, it's going to be there's going to be a lot of obstacles in that stick handling course that they're going to be on in the next month. So hopefully Kyle can handle the puck well, and he can find his way through all those things that are in his way, because there's a lot of obstacles in his way right now, and the biggest one is money and cap space. And you know, once again, like I said, I don't see any way of getting out of this and putting together a more balanced team and a more playoff ready team than moving one or possibly two of the top four guys. Mm-hmm. And I think if you could pull something off, you might be able to cobble together a really good character type team and guys like Goudreau and those types of players. And if you can grab a few of those guys, but you got to clear room, which clearly they don't have right now.
They don't, and they need a lot of hope. And I get, hopefully listening to our advice, because the next time you cash your check from the Maple Leafs, oh wait a minute, we aren't getting paid to do this. We're offering this for free, so we don't have anything at risk. Anyway, Squid, I would suggest that.
That's why it's easy. That's why it's easy for us to say.
Oh, it's very easy for us. We got all the answers right here, Kyle.
It's a lot different when you're sitting in Kyle Dubas's chair and looking at the wall where you have your lineup and everything else on a board, and looking at it and going, "What the hell am I going to do to get out of this jam?" And trust me, I feel for him, because
I do too.
As far as I'm concerned, it is a jam right now.
Well, let's put it this way: not only what you just mentioned about trying to organize the puzzle in front of him on the wall, he goes for a Starbucks coffee and there's 45 tweets before he's poured the sugar in the cup.
Yeah.
Okay, about what he's going to do. He's in Starbucks. He must be talking to Seattle. What's he doing now? It's just endless. So let's leave it on a positive note for once again, Squid. And this one's for Kyle Dubas. I guess we'd have to say we'll leave this one with him. In the words of Robbie Louis Stevenson, ring very true. And so here you are. Here, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Here's today's. Life is not a matter of holding good cards, but of playing a poor hand well.
Ooh. Very good. Very good. So that means hopefully he's a good bluffer and he can suck someone into a bad deal.
That's the whole point of this. That's exactly what we're looking for. So hopefully we earn it. We deserve it. And just like Italy winning the World yesterday, or the Euro Cup yesterday, it can be our turn too. Okay. They were 1966, or England was 1966, or wherever it went back to. So way back. So we can put ourselves in the same boat and use all that same nonsense everybody uses going back 50 years. So on all of that, folks.
I hope so.
Well, we all
I hope so, Mike.
It means nothing, because the league was different and all that. But anyway, we'll use it anyway because it's to our advantage today. So, folks, I want to thank you all for listening. Join us again Wednesday, same time, same place. We'll continue to talk about the Leafs. Maybe we'll have something further to add with free agency. It's just around the corner, so we're going to have lots to talk about in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, folks, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday.